Hi, in this video we are going to talk about writing linear equations starting from 2 points. So the lesson prior to this, we wrote linear equations when we were given the slope and we were given 1 point. All right, so now we're not given the slope. We're given 2 points. So the good news is this process is going to involve 2 things that you have already done before, but you just got to put them together. I know, easier said than done. But we're going to use the slope formula that we have done before, where we subtract the y's on top and we subtract the x's on the bottom. And yes, you can do y2 minus y1, as long as you also do x2 minus x1. As long as you're consistent in your setup, whichever point you take first for your y's, take his partner first for your x's. Y's must be on top, x's must be on the bottom. And then once we know the m, once we know the slope, then we can do what we did yesterday and plug in to the y, the m, and the x, and find that b that we need, then write our equation. You do have to choose one of the points for the y and the x. You cannot do a mix and match. All right. So our strategy here is going to be find m, find b, and then write the equation. That's our strategy. So those are our 3 things that's going to happen. So there is something also called point slope formula. You could plug into that, but then you have to convert it into slope intercept form. So I think most of my students find it just much easier. We don't even have to learn that other form. We can just plug into slope intercept form. All right, so first off, I need to find the slope. We know that this is an x and a y and an x and a y. Remember, the 1 and 2 just means first point, second point. So I'm going to do 7 subtract negative 1, because remember there's subtraction in the formula. And then on the bottom, I started with 7, so I take his partner, negative 3, subtract 1 on the bottom. Use my sign number rules. I know that that becomes 8 over negative 4, which is negative 2. So that's my slope. Now that I know my slope, I choose one of the 2 points, and it does not matter which. Either way, it really does come out to be the same answer. The b turns out the same, but I have to choose one of the 2 points and do what we did the previous day, using this as m and the x and y of the point that I've selected. So I'm going to now write down y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to plug the things in that I can. So the y of that point is 7. M, we just found out, is negative 2. Mx means m times x, so negative 2 times negative 3 plus b. Negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. So 7 is equal to 6 plus b. Take away 6, right? Because I got to get the b by itself. So b is 1. So I have found the m. I have found the b. And then my last step is that I write the equation. So then my equation, y is equal to negative 2x plus 1. So my equation is in slope-intercept form. And then another thing you can do when you have these 2 points is you can test it with the other point to make sure that it works. Because this should be a rule that works for any point on this line. So if I would do negative 2 times the other x is a 1, so I'm looking at this point up here, negative 2 times 1 plus 1, that's negative 2 plus 1, and that equals negative 1. Does that match the y of that point? Ah, yes it does. If it doesn't, something's gone wrong, right? So you're going to find the slope, find the b, plugging everything into slope-intercept form, then plug your m and your b into the equation, and then if you desire, you can plug the other point in to make sure that it works. That's completely optional, but it is a good way to check your work. All right, so I'm going to drop down to number 3 instead of mucking things up there. So if you need to pause to get those notes on the side written down, please feel free to do that. Here we go. Let me get page down. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and mark this out because I'm not going to do 3 and 4, just so I can feel free to use the other space. On the homework for this, I told students, you know, if you want to do more, you can, but just to do the odd problems, because then if your work bleeds over to the right, it's no big deal. You're just doing every other problem, and you have lots of space, because I don't want you to miss things because you don't have enough room to be organized. So first, what do we do first? Find our slope, right? So the m, we have to find the slope first. So I got an x and a y, an x and a y. So it's the y's that get subtracted on top. Look back at that formula if you need it. -1 subtract -6. And then the x's are getting subtracted on the bottom. So 2 subtract 4. Remember that those two negatives make a positive. So -1 and +6 gives me 5. 2 subtract 4 is -2. Now be careful with your signs, because if you make this +5/2 instead of -5/2, keep in mind one negative means the whole fraction is negative. I can place it top or bottom. But if you said the fraction was positive, your b will be a completely different number, not even close to the number it should be. So now that I have m, I need to find b. So first I'm going to write y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to plug things in. So I can take either point. Let's say I take this first one. -1 is the y. We just found out that m is 5 over -2. By the way, the negative doesn't have to stay with the bottom. You could write it up top if you want. Times the x here is a 2. And then we don't know b. So got to multiply that fraction times that whole number. So we're doing 5 times 2 is 10. Divided by -2 is -5. Or you could do the division first, or use your calculator. But the answer should still be -5. And then to get the b by itself, I would have to add 5 to get rid of that -5. And a -1 plus 5 is 4. So b here is 4. So my equation would be y is equal to, and I'm usually going to move my negative either with the top or kind of out to the side. It's perfectly okay if you left it down there with the 2. But we've got the slope in front of the x, and then plus the 4. Notice you have to have y equal, you have to have x after your slope, and then even though b is positive, we need a sign in between there so that it's not just all run together. All right, let's take a look at number 5. Again, I'm going to find my slope first. So I need to subtract the y's on the top. Notice how I have 2 negatives in there because I'm subtracting -5. -8, subtract 0. So this gives me 6 over -8, which would be -3/4. So reduce that fraction. It should be simplified in your final answer. And let's just say, as usual, there is a little bit shorter way I'll talk to you about for this particular problem. Let's just say I pick this point. So again, I'm going to say y equals mx plus b. The y of that point is 1. My m is negative 3/4. My x is negative 8. And then plus b. So negative times negative is going to give me a positive. I'm just going to go ahead and settle that. My mx is going to be positive when I multiply them together. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 divided by the 6, or the 4. 3 times 8, 24. And then there's a 4 on the bottom. 24 divided by 4 is 6. We can also do this. 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 8 twice. And then 3 times 2 is 6. We still get 6. All right, so it's 6 no matter what. Again, 2 negatives, I knew it was going to be positive. I got to get that b by itself, so if we subtract 6, we get negative 5 for b. And then my equation is y is negative 3/4 x minus 5. Now, I want you to take a look at that. Negative 3/4 x minus 5. And look at our second point. Yeah, our second point over here is 0, negative 5. Keep in mind, any point, if the x is 0, right? When x is 0, it is the y-intercept. And friends, the y-intercept, that is the b, right? That's the b that we're looking for. So if you see that one of the ordered pairs has 0 for x, this number is going to be your y-intercept. If you don't recognize that, it's okay. That's what came out when I did the math. But if I do recognize it, I could find my slope and I could go directly to this. Don't have to, but it works. If I plug my 0 in for x, negative 3/4 times 0, take away 5 is negative 5. So that second point does work. So it's going to be common, not every one of them, but it's going to be common that you might get fractions for your slope. And then, but remember, you are finding your slope first and then your b. If you get a fraction for your slope, and then when you multiply m and x, you still have a fraction, you might have messed up the slope or not be plugging in an x. Because I've tried to carefully select problems so that our b's are not going to be fractions. So when you multiply m and x, you shouldn't have a fraction anymore. If you do, that's cause to go back and check things again. All right, so I hope this is helpful. Again, for this homework, if you by chance looked at something and I had evens, if you did evens, that's okay. But what I find works out pretty well here is if you do odds, because then on this homework, if I'm doing odds, then I'm not doing this problem, and if I need the space, I can use all of this, maybe find my m, and then over here do my y equals mx plus b and have lots of space. All right? If you prefer to do the evens, I just want you to do at least 5 of these problems. I have all mine worked out so I can check your answers either way. All right? Again, that is homework that is, at least currently, labeled as homework 10. All right, hope that helps. Thanks.